What is Form 320 and why do you have to have it when you are doing an offer for a property or for a rental in Ontario? Today I'm going to explain OREA's Form 320 in detail and what you need to know before signing this document. Hi, I'm Nick Venditis from Royal LePage Performance Realty in Ottawa, and today I'll walk you through the confirmation of cooperation and representation form. That's Form 320 that the Ottawa Real Estate Board, Ontario Real Estate Association uses. So this is a two-page form, and it accompanies any offer of purchase and sale, or leases as well if you're doing them with organized real estate. So if you're working with a real estate brokerage on either side. This simply sets out who the two parties are in an offer and who is representing whom. Hopefully I'm using that grammar correctly, I hope. Anyways, so it identifies the buyers. In this case, it's Jim Halpert and Pam Beasley. They are buying a home from Mark Messier and his partner, Mary Messier, for the transaction on the property known as 628 Gaines Drive, Ottawa, Ontario. So it's got a specific property, specific buyer and seller. Then we go to definitions and interpretations. So all this paragraph means is that we have defined who the buyer, the seller, and the property are above. Pretty straightforward. Declaration of insurance. So this says that the both brokers or both real estate brokerages involved in this purchase and sale have insurance. They're real brokerages that are all, certified and paid up in the province of Ontario. Then you have number one, which is the listing brokerage section. In this case, and this is what you will see 99 times out of 100, is that the listing brokerage represents the interests of the seller in this transaction. That's the first checked box. It is further understood and agreed that the first checkbox, the listing brokerage is not representing or providing customer service to the buyer. So if the buyer is working with a cooperating brokerage, section 3 is also completed. If the listing brokerage was providing customer service to the buyer while also providing client service to the seller, they would check that second box. And then multiple representation. This is what gets checked off if buyer and seller are both clients of the same brokerage. There's special steps that have to be taken, and these are spelled out very carefully. Basically, it comes down to communication and making sure that only information that is permitted to be disclosed is being disclosed. So not that the seller may or will accept less than the listed price, that the buyer may or will pay more than the offered price, the motivation or personal information about the buyer or seller, the price that the buyer should offer or the price the seller should accept, and that the listing broker shall not disclose to the buyer the terms of any other offer. So when you have a multiple offer situation, not just multiple representation, but when you have more than one offer on a property, no parties are allowed to disclose to other people's clients what is or their realtors what is in those offers. Just that they exist, but not for how much or what closing dates, that kind of stuff. Number two, so property sold by a buyer brokerage, property not listed. You see, in this case, we have nothing checked here. It's because the brokerage does or does not represent the buyer. This would be if you have somebody who just grabbed a Canadian Tire sign, stuck it in the ground, says my house is for sale, and then you working with or in this case, Jim and Pam working with me, want to buy that house. We would use this form and have the seller sign it as well, even though he's not being represented by us. It's disclosing that it's not a listed property. And if there's any comments to clarify that, we put them under there. There's a spot for everyone to sign, so both brokerages and the buyer and the seller. And then we go into page 2. So section 3, the cooperating brokerage. So we almost always check the top box, which says the cooperating brokerage, which is also known as the buyer's brokerage, which is also confusingly known as the selling brokerage, represents the interests of the buyer in this transaction. There can also be situations where the cooperating brokerage is providing customer service, or the cooperating brokerage is not representing the buyer and has not entered into any agreement. That would be very specific situations that we won't get into in this video. They're pretty rare. The cooperating brokerage, so commission, usually commission is listed somewhere on the MLS sheet for the property if we're buying an MLS listed property. And in this case, this one at 628 Gaines, it says the listing brokerage will pay the cooperating brokerage the commission as indicated in the MLS information for the property. So 2.5% plus HST, something you see a lot around Ottawa, but there's no standard amount. It's just whatever is listed there. And it is something that is determined in the listing agreement. It's not something that's decided suddenly here. And it's to be paid out from the amount paid by the seller to the listing brokerage. So in effect, the buyer pays the commission because they're paying for the house, but the seller has set aside that commission from the proceeds of the house. So they set that out before when the house is even listed, before the sign even goes in the ground. And then B, so sometimes commission is being paid another way. So let's say that Canadian Tire guy in the previous example, or that there's certain unusual ways that commission might be paid. So like directly from the buyer, for example, or from some third party for some reason, that would be spelled out below. And then there's additional comments or disclosures. So example, if either of the brokers are related to their clients or have an interest in the property. So if the buyer broker is buying the property for himself, or if the listing broker this happens a lot, is selling their own house or is related to the seller, they would write that there. It says commission will be payable as described plus applicable taxes. So there's a commission trust agreement. So it explains how that's paid out below. Then there's a spot for for my brokerage to sign. So Royal LePage Performance Realty, and I sign to bind the brokerage to that. And then, the listing brokerage in this case is Friendly Real Estate, and it's Grover Monster is the listing agent. He's a great guy to work with. He's been in the business for a long time, and he's very professional. So that if it were multiple representation, if they were both with the same brokerage, buyer and seller, then they would initial these bubbles here. So for the consent for multiple representation, because we don't want you to be in multiple representation unless you're being informed. And then finally, a spot for both buyer and seller to say that they understand that. So Jim and Pam will sign on one side, and the Mark and Mary are going to sign on the other side. That's that form. You need to understand it to sign to buy a house. I want you to understand any forms that you are signing. It's important to know what you're putting your name to there. And if you have questions, even if you are not my client, I am happy to answer them for you. I think it is valuable to have informed consumers, informed homeowners and home buyers. And you can reach me at nick@nickfunditis.ca, any of my other coordinates, or through social. And we've got lots more information on our YouTube channel or at nickfunditis.ca. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this helpful.